Hello everyone, welcome to yet another day in this clown decade, the decade where things are only going to get worse before they get better, and unfortunately today I'm going to have to talk about how Donald Trump is not exactly going to be helping the global right with things that he has done recently. Long story short, sorry Americans, MAGA bros and all that, but your president has done one of the most stupid things I think I've ever seen economically, and I am talking worse than things that Gary Stevenson wants. And trust me, that is a scathing review of what has happened. So obviously Donald Trump has decided to tariff the entire planet, including Antarctica for some reason, because in his mind the word deficit is bad no matter what it is put onto, and he thinks trade deficits are pretty bad and so punishes countries that he has a trade deficit with. He seems to misunderstand that a trade deficit just means you pay money out and you get products back that you paid for. You just happen to pay more money and get more products back than products you send out and get money back for. It's not a bad thing. It always confuses me when people think it's a bad thing, but hey, it's ended up with 106% tariffs on China or something like that. Which, to be fair, has led to iPhones now being sourced from India instead, so I can't wait till they get 106% tariff until eventually they make iPhones imprisoned in the US, I guess. But hey, I'm a free trader, so I'm obviously going to be very against tariffs, as basically every economist is. What makes it so stupid, by the way, you can maybe justify tariffs if they are targeted for, national security reasons. You tariff steel from abroad so that you make steel within your own country. That might make some sense, but he's taxed Madagascan vanilla, Vietnamese coffee, and I kind of can't believe that I'm seeing tweets like this. From the quartering, you don't need the new iPad, you don't need the new cell phone, you don't need the new video games console, you want them. There's a big difference, and if you look at people whining about the tariffs, I challenge you to ask them how their lives have been affected in any way. He's doing the "how does this affect you personally" meme about something that is affecting everyone personally. Yeah, you're right. These aren't needs, they are actually wants. People want them to be cheaper. And the thing is, if you don't make them cheaper and make their cost of living more expensive for God knows what reason, for outcomes that you are not necessarily going to even like, which is more expensive everything, then yeah, people aren't going to vote Republican again, are they? Of course they're not. The most basic truth of politics is, at the very least, keep the economy running. This, unironically, is how the Tories won for 14 years. They weren't great with the economy, but they didn't crash it. They kind of did after COVID, and oh, guess what? They lost. In fact, they were devastated, but that's because they were stuck between a rock and a hard place. Oh, do you let Granny die, or do you crash the economy? They chose crash the economy, and they lost. Because if they let grannies die, they'd lose because Granny died. But this is absolutely incredible stuff from the quartering of all people. 8.1 thousand likes for this after 22 million views. People did not like this at all. What's even more amazing is that the quartering relies on this technology being cheap to actually run his channel. Because why would people go to his channel to hear about the next new thing in media culture if they can't even afford to partake in media culture? Of course people don't want to switch to be $700. They'd rather it be about $400. That's just basic stuff, man. I can't believe you tweeted this. The other thing I find weird is that he has his own coffee brand. You're going to have to pay more to source that coffee. Does that affect you personally yet, the quartering? I can't believe he wrote this. Anyway, I've had enough of complaining about the quartering. We are now going to go to a Politics Joe Vox Pop where they ask a load of bankers who get a load of bonuses about what they think about the world economy as it stands with this tariff move.
Can you tell us what tariffs might mean for the UK economy?
I think tariffs are the beginning of an economic war between Europe, including the UK, and the US. And if things aren't improved very quickly, I think we're going to go down an unsteady path.
Yeah, this is definitely true for the EU. He slapped like 20-something% on the EU. We got lucky and got the baseline tariff of 10%. God knows why. The thing is, he actually dealt with the UK probably the best, but still not very well. 10% tariffs, they're just there for absolutely no reason whatsoever. The funniest thing about these tariffs, actually, is I'm pretty sure if you include services, America does actually have a trade deficit with us, but he only calculated it on goods. And this is the funniest thing. The reason there's such a massive trade deficit with a load of countries is because America exports a whole bunch of services. And so if he took those into account, he probably wouldn't have put all these tariffs on all these countries as much as he did, but he didn't. Because according to Donald Trump, services aren't really part of the economy or something like that. And this was actually pointed out before the election, because he was talking about tariffs. He was obviously going to put tariffs on. It's just people didn't think he was going to mean blanket tariffs, which is absolutely absurd. But it was pointed out that Donald Trump never really talks about services as part of the economy, so if you're a service economy, you'll get away with murder. Britain's a service economy, we've got away with quite a lot. As I say, he did the right thing insofar as putting tariffs on cars. 25% I think he's putting on it. That's already caused Land Rover to stop exporting to America, so well done there, I suppose. You know, I say the right thing. It's not the right thing to do. Tariffs are still not a great way to run an economy. But if you are going to use tariffs, yes, be selective with them like you were with our automotive industry. I don't like that fact. I would like us to export more cars. Yes, even Jaguars. But unfortunately, we kneecapped our very own automotive industry with net zero. And funnily enough, with all this, with it being a struggle for cars, Keir Starmer was a kind god and decided, I'm going to relax net zero a bit. He didn't do that by getting rid of the net zero requirements. They're still there. It's just the fine's gone down from 20,000 to 15,000 or something like that. All he's done is taken 25% off a fine that automotive companies end up having to pay if they don't reach their net zero target. So we're still screwed either way, and I can't really blame that on America because we export all over the world. Anyway, having said that, yes, Europe are definitely going to be in a trade war with America. It looks like Starmer's doing the right thing and actually trying to get a free trade deal rather than put reciprocal tariffs on. So I don't like Keir Starmer, but he's definitely doing the right thing with America, or at least what I do with America.
So you don't think reciprocal tariffs would be the answer here?
Don't think so, no. Retaliation just is more bad after more bad.
Absolutely, but that's what China's doing anyway because, well, they have a soft empire over in Africa and, well, their economy, while they have their free economic zones, is still largely centrally controlled and, well, tariffs might be a bit of an advantage there, to be quite honest. At least comparatively to the USA.
Could you give your current assessment of what the UK economy is like right now?
Not good.
Yep, that's pretty much where I am as well. It's quite funny, I kept saying before the election that, at the very least, I think Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves, it won't be good economics, will just be stagnant. I thought they'd do their best to avoid a recession. To be fair to them, after they've caused a slight recession, they are actually trying their best to stabilise it again. Unfortunately, it seems the way they're trying to stabilise it is taxing more, which isn't going to work. So, unfortunately, yes, we are looking at a quite slow recession, and once again, this is all thanks to left-wing economics, and every single millennial who is left-wing is saying, you see, we need more left-wing economics to fix this. They've got their world, and they will never accept it because it was delivered to them by the Tories. It's unbelievable.
Why is that?
I think everything's, from what Trump's having with Trump, everything's going down, but what I hear, all the stock market's going down or going very low. In real terms, money-wise, everything's going up. Salary increases aren't going up to match it. So I think we're heading for either a very slow recession.
Yeah, and to be fair, this has basically been happening since COVID, which I suppose, to be fair to the Tories, it was pretty unavoidable to actually have some sort of economic impact from that. Not even if we did what a lot of COVID skeptics wanted and didn't lock down at all and kept the economy going as it was. Because the global economy didn't keep going, it still would have affected us to some extent. Plus Ukraine-Russia war, there's been quite a lot of geopolitical events that have led to, inevitable economic downturn. It just then turns out that Labour decided to make the whole thing worse. And now, frankly, Trump has too. So yeah, enjoy the recession. Millennials can keep complaining, but they want the whole thing worse, so I don't really care.
What could Keir Starmer do to kind of reverse the tides?
It's hard to say because they came in. I'm not a Labour supporter.
Don't worry, you understand basic economics, of course. Of course, you're not a Labour supporter.
They came into power. The Tories weren't fantastic, but
I mean that's understatement of the decade, I think. And somehow they put Kemi Badenoch in charge, and it gets even worse for them. Pretty incredible, really.
I think they've got everyone on side with pay increases like all they don't deserve it, but they've given everyone a pay increase who probably vote for them. Everyone like sort of middle England who earn a decent wage, I think are being hit very hard.
Yeah, this has been made pretty obvious to me. Basically, everyone in the public sector keeps voting Labour and wants Labour in because they give them pay increases. Everyone outside of there is realising they're basically being robbed blind to pay for that. It's not bad economic analysis from this guy, yeah. People have asked about the budget. If they have to be a public sector worker, they quite like it. We've ended up in a mini recession. And, well, I'm afraid to say that then means that we are going to see a tightening of, wages for a lot of other people, at least on average. And not only that, but from news that keeps coming out, a lot of people in this public sector are losing their jobs to pay for the pay increase as well. So, well done, Labour. Literally everything I warned you that would happen happened. Maybe you should hire me as your advisor. Or Reform should. Anyone, really. I know what I'm talking about.
I earn a good salary and I'm very strapped at the minute. Very, yeah.
Before people go mad and say, oh, you're on like 3 figures a year, 3 figures, it'll be on 6. How are you strapped for cash? Well, what I mean by that is things I used to be able to afford and had like direct debits for, and the holidays I used to go on, I'll have to make sacrifices there. To a lot of people, that'll mean, oh, you have to live like the rest of us. And my only thought then is, why should anyone have to, in an economy, make sacrifices that they didn't have to used to through choices that weren't their own? I would say that's not particularly fair. Obviously, this guy isn't saying that it's only people like me that are struggling. He's saying basically everyone in the private sector is struggling, including people who can't even afford to live in London. He's given his own personal anecdote to effectively say, it's not just you. I understand that I'm in a way better position, but everyone is actually affected by this. The banks aren't getting bonuses these days. They're just getting regular pay increases, by the way. That's how they made up for it. But either way, you can be annoyed at him for being rich all you want. I understand the point he's making, and he's empathetic to, well, people like you who won't make as much. Anyway, he's then asked what's the long-term effect of these tariffs will be.
It's a hard one. I think America, he's right. He's looking after America. But on the flip side of that, it's going to hit the UK hard, especially the car industry. Anyone who exports to America is going to get hit really hard. Europe, even harder, and the Far East, I think they're out of it.
Yeah, I want to make it clear. I understand Trump's intention is to put America first. The thing is that the best way to do that is to make the savings on, whatever Doge has managed to cut, and, cuts to US aid and things like that. And honestly, a better option would just be subsidise these industries you're trying to protect. And again, if you're going to do tariffs, for God's sake, don't blanket tariff people. He keeps saying that VAT is a type of tariff. It's not. It's not because native industries have to pay VAT as well. It's not something levied on foreign imports. That's the point of a tariff. So it's crazy, but Trump has made me agree with the BBC over the past week, and I am not happy about that. My one pet peeve about a lot of right-wingers is that they will make stupid points and then give the BBC and other leftist institutions like that open goals that make me agree with them. If a right-winger does that, it really puts me off them. So sorry, Trump boys, but he's not done well here.
So I've got a feeling that either we're going to go and work more with the Europeans, get trade that way. If we stick to America, it's sort of like looking out for yourself, if that makes sense.
I don't see a reason why we can't do both. I mean, if we've got the opportunity to have a free trade deal with America and trade as we do with Europe, I don't see the issue with that. If we do manage to get into a position like that, my God, that's the best Brexit dividend we've ever seen.
But I think it's going to, yes. But I think Keir Starmer, I'm not quite sure. He seems to be doing the right thing, like negotiating, whereas Canada have hit back with like for like. I think negotiating is the best way of doing it.
I do agree, but I have to say as an outsider, it's very funny to see these tariffs go to over 100% with China, for example. He hit Canada with 50% tariffs, and long term, all it seems to be doing is, well, making it harder for certain industries to actually function. If you say can't source your own iron ore, say, to make steel, well, all of a sudden you've just massively increased the cost to make steel because you're paying an extra however much, 10% up to 100% apparently tariff for the iron ore imports. Negotiating for a reciprocal free trade deal is the best way to do it. You know, you could probably keep certain tariffs in place that help you in terms of, tertiary products like, say, cars, keep a tariff on them, but the raw materials like iron ore and steel, possibly steel, that's more of a secondary good, then you end up causing manufacturing and production to want to grow in your own country while actually allowing that to flourish because you got a free trade deal on the primary goods, which is, in this case, the iron ore. This is largely, by the way, how the British Empire worked. We were a manufacturing hub because we had a free trade throughout our own empire to source an awful lot of the raw materials, you know, cotton from India and America to go into the cotton mills, which were then used to make textiles. Iron ore was sourced from all over the empire to help our steel industry. We didn't have to import much coal because we had an awful lot of coal, but even then we probably had some free trade deal with somewhere in our empire which brought in even more coal. And it's why we were a massive economic powerhouse up till World War I and II, after which we decided to effectively become a socialist country. And it's a hell of a red pill to realise this, but we have basically been a socialist country since 1945, thanks to Clement Attlee, and Margaret Thatcher was our best chance to get out of it, but she was kicked out after 10 years. That's how bad the socialism is, by the way, in Britain. It's going to take over 10 years to get rid of it. Unless you rip the plaster off, which, you know, I would also prefer.
But I can't see the average Joe being well off or getting better, basically.
That's true basically worldwide, by the way. And, you know, you see pictures like this of the stock market, you know, is it tanking? I guess 15% off is a kind of tanking. But having the 3-day worst stock market decline in 40 years, something like that, yeah, that's not good. Because I hear a load of people saying, oh, it's only the stock market, it's only rich people that deal with that. I'm sorry to say, but if you have a pension, that will be invested basically in all of this. This is true worldwide, by the way. You know, the Norwegian Wealth Fund, that's probably just lost 15% of its value over the course of the past 3 days because of this, because they invested basically every private company in and out of Norway. I'm in about 4 group chats on WhatsApp, and every single one of them have been effectively Trump-hating for the last 3 days, and I have absolutely no defence whatsoever, because I agree with them. Why should they tolerate their money being absolutely decimated like this because Trump did something stupid to put blanket tariffs on everyone? As I say, it's not just a few people that rely on the stock market going up. Absolutely everyone does. As stock market goes up, your goods become cheaper and cheaper. You know, I've mentioned this before, but the bigger your TV is, the poorer you probably are in the UK. It's kind of a status symbol that the bigger TV you have, it's almost a cope to say, look, I'm not working class, I can afford a big TV. The reason they can afford it is because they're so cheap. It's obviously not a perfect one-to-one correlation, but my God, this is just going to make everyone poorer. And basically every economist in the world agrees.
No question. So reciprocal tariffs then definitely aren't something that you would...
I don't think so, no. I think it would then become tit for tat and say Trump is looking after America. You can't fault him for that.
Well, I can't fault him for wanting to put America first. What I can fault him for is the way he is putting America first. Which, to be fair, is what this guy's doing. He's just putting his point across quite badly.
He's going to hit Europe, England, Far East very hard. So either they cut ties with America or they renegotiate their deals. But no, I think Trump's got one term in him, and that's him done. So I
think this guy's not aware that they can only serve 2 terms as president. But I think he's right insofar as I don't think the Republicans are going to do very well next election, especially if they can't recover from this in the next 3 years. And I think it's going to take quite a bit of work to recover the 15% drop that the stock market has seen, but there we go. And MAGA boys, that is a disaster for you. You need to listen to this general outcry to the tariffs and demand better from, well, the politicians you support. I'm afraid to say that Trump is indeed not infallible. And this is quite a horrendous mistake. There's no other word for it, really. This is possibly the worst policy I've seen from a Western politician in some time, at the very least in terms of economics.
Can you give us a brief overview of what the market's like this morning?
Volatile. I think mainly because of the tariffs from the United States. I hope the UK will come to a deal with the United States, and hopefully it'll be less volatile for both them and us in respect with trading between each other.
Yep, that's my position. Volatile is, that's kind of trader language and banker language for it's all screwed. It's very, very bad. And yeah, a lot of them seem to have the same opinion as me. Go for a free trade deal, Keir Starmer, and hopefully it will mean less volatility between us and the US in terms of trade. And then at the same time, we can keep trading with the EU. And in fact, you can kind of be a go-between for EU goods to then trade to the US for basically no tariffs. Of course, that will then mean that our trade deficit with America goes down, and in fact we probably become a trade surpluser, and then we end up getting tariffs. But Trump likes us, so he might just ignore that.
Who do you think have been the winners and losers on the stock market since the tariffs have been introduced?
I think that's difficult to say who's going to be the winners and losers. We'll have to wait and see what pans out and if we come to a deal.
So to translate that, anyone with a free trade deal with the US is a winner here. As far as I'm aware, basically nobody has a free trade deal with the US, so everyone's a loser for now, but wait and see what trade deals come out of it, and people with a trade deal with the US will be winners. That's effectively what it looks like he's saying there.
I think if the United States, I'm not so sure they're going to be a winner if they keep such a draconian way of imposing tariffs, not just with the UK, but internationally.
Yeah, and one of the biggest reasons for that is because getting raw materials in that you need for manufacturing end up costing a hell of a lot more as well. Who produces vanilla in America? Like, seriously, why? That's the one that's really getting to me. 47% tariff on Madagascar. Getting Madagascar vanilla all of a sudden, if you were paying $1 for it, it's now $1.50. All right, you ramp that up for Ben and Jerry's ice cream or something. I guess people are avoiding that on the right, but still, you get my point. It costs £5 over here. All of a sudden, they now have to pay an extra 47 cents for every dollar paid on Madagascar vanilla to flavour their ice cream. All of a sudden, it becomes a hell of a lot more expensive. Plus, God knows where they get all the other ingredients and source their materials for other parts of the manufacturing process from. This is going to cause prices to increase everywhere, and the only way that that's going to be good for America is if they can get their wages up even quicker. I don't think that's happening, to be quite honest with you, but who knows. Yeah, as I say, this is a disaster, and if this was just get trade deals, then it's a pretty risky way to get trade deals.
And finally, do you think that the only way for the UK to get out of this unscathed is to strike some sort of deal with the US?
Yes, I do. At the moment, the tariffs are 10%, slightly higher on other goods. I think the average should be around 4.1, and I think that's generally what the trades were. The trade deal was between us before the imposition of 10%.
Well, yeah, and the problem is that we barely had any tariffs, and these were not reciprocal, really. As mentioned, this was all a plan to baseline 10% and then base it off trade deficits divided by 2 or something like that. Honestly, I didn't even go into detail on how they worked it out. It was a ridiculous equation, though. And yeah, as I say, it's ended up with over 100% on China after putting 50-odd% on them. It's just absolutely crazy. I kind of can't believe they did it.
That's obviously better than Europe and elsewhere. So, and I know negotiations between the government and the US are still going on.
Every single one of these people is saying free trade is the way forward, and that has been true time immemorial. Free trade's just good. Maybe some tariffs on certain goods for national security reasons and things like that. But general rule of thumb, just go for free trade. Obviously.
So what kind of advice would you be giving to Keir Starmer then, if you could?
If I could, I think we should start talking to the Americans and sort of telling them that they are going down the wrong path, and let's see if we can, get a free trade agreement with them for the UK.
As I say, absolutely everyone, just get free trade. It's good that that's what Starmer's doing, by the way. It's very good. It's very good that we have the baseline tariff compared to other countries who are getting higher tariffs, obviously. EU at 20%, China at 100 and odd, Madagascar for some god knows what reason 47%, Vietnam for some reasons also there as well, despite the fact that I can't get my head around it. Why are you bullying a third world country like that? What's the advantage? China I can completely get. If this was just tariffs massive tariffs on China and Russia, I'd probably understand. Why are you doing it to your allies, and why are you doing it to Vietnam, who's of no use to anyone? You know, they're still a socialist country, and their main export is coffee, which every American drinks. Why are you going after them? Honestly, I can't get my head around it. Every defence I see of this policy, it 180s as soon as the next bit of fake news comes out. Fake news comes out, MAGA boys say, see, it was trade deals, it was for trade deals, trust the plan. Turns out that's fake news. Oh, it's because he's trying to punish them. Why are you trying to punish the UK then? And Vietnam and Madagascar. Oh, it's to get trade deals. Oh, but that's not happening. It's all over the place. The reasoning's all over the place. I'm sorry to say that economically, this is one of the worst things I've seen America ever do. As I said at the start, this is actually unironically worse for the economy than putting in a wealth tax like Gary Stevenson does. A wealth tax would make billionaires and millionaires move away. Not all of them, some of them. And that would massively reduce the tax intake. But they'd still be able to actually do business in the UK. So at least you don't lose that. Ideally, this is supposed to make business come to the US. And yes, it has worked in some respects, but in a lot of other respects, it's going to make businesses collapse because they can't afford to keep running costs up. If you're on the border with Canada and you were relying on energy imports and you're now paying 1.5 times the price you were for it, that's going to make it a hell of a lot harder to keep your company going because everything requires energy. We're having this issue in the UK at the moment. We have the highest energy costs in the West and businesses can't afford to keep going. So we've ended up closing a load of steel plants. Putting tariffs on steel imports would not bring that steel plant back. So it's not going to work in America either. I mean, you know, thank God they got Doge in. Thank God that US aid has stopped being funded. But this just ruins all that goodwill that I had. And it's not good to see because this affects the right all over the world. A lot of the right were relying on Trump to not be an idiot, and now he's being an idiot because they planted his flag with him, said Trump's going to be good, he's going to bring sensible policy back, and then he does this. And now we have to disassociate, but not do it in such a way that it annoys him. It's going to be a hell of a few years, I tell you that. Anyway, I think I've covered everything I need to there. So, Tosh news tonight. No doubt we will be talking quickly about this massive mistake again. And then it's news from the week from all over the place in Britain, so do look forward to that. Then it's Tosh Talks next week, where Joz will be putting together a little presentation for us to talk about Doge and the defunding of a lot of the US foreign aid policy and what they were doing in the past with it as well. And then next Thursday it's Laughing at the Guardian because it's Holy Week and Thursday's the best day that I can do, so there you go. Right, if you want to help out the channel, do subscribe, leave a like, leave a comment. Please also, could you give me some money via super chats or super thanks? Many of you are doing that and I appreciate all of you for that. And also become a member, you get access to all my old Laughing at the Guardians. Right, with that, that's everything I had for you for today. So once again, thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.